Good morning. My name is Angelica Silva, and I am a student for children's literature. For my project, I decided to interview my son Nathan. I figure it would be the easiest thing because I have him right here at home when I need him. Hi, this is Nathan. How are you today, Nathan?
I'm doing pretty well, but you woke me up early, so not that great.
Well, that's what I meant when I say I have him at home available anytime I need him. Okay, so we're gonna get right to it. I know that Nathan loves to read. He always has. Nathan, what do books represent to you?
Books are an easy way to escape reality and try and help find a new place to be, one that is either better or just more interesting from what's going on. They're a distraction from what's happening right now, and a very good one. So, I enjoy reading because it just brings me into the lives of others that I normally wouldn't be able to experience, and just sort of helps me keep myself entertained in my boring old life.
Okay. What is the first book that you remember reading?
I think I remember reading it with you. It was that one book about the rabbit and the hare.
Yes, it was. I remember the book. It was about a ducky and a bunny, and actually, all my kids love that book. I read it only to you because someone gave it to me when you were born, and it was such a sweet book. I actually been meaning to get a copy of it, and I'm happy that you actually remember that book. Okay. When you're reading a book, what helps you relate to the characters? What helps you be interested?
Well, starting off fresh with action is a terrible thing for a book to do because during that you aren't at all attached to the main character because you don't know who they are and what they stand for, etc. So you could watch them in mortal peril and not care at all. What they should start out doing is a day in their normal life, showing that they are a normal person with emotions and feelings, go through some base hardship that pretty much anyone can relate to, and just starting it off with a character that you understand and that has some clear motives. Motives are a very important thing for stories, and without them, it quickly falls apart.
Okay. So, what would you say is your favorite type of books? Like, what do you prefer to read?
I read a lot of fantasy. I'm gonna be honest. Like, a majority of the books that I'm reading right now are fantasy books. So,
Okay. Can you emphasize the reason why you like fantasy so much?
it's easy to be enveloped in a story that's new and fresh compared to our own. Well, emotional hardship for realistic fiction books or just hardship that's more similar to our own world can still envelop me. It's just easier to be brought into a world of new ideas. It piques my curiosity, and I end up trying to figure out how everything works.
Okay. Have you ever read a book of a different genre? Like,
Yeah, of course. I've read a lot of realistic fiction books like The Martian, etc., and science
still
fiction.
fantasy. Have you ever read
No, The Martian
history?
is realistic fiction. It is set hard in our real world, just slightly into the future. The science is the same. There's no magic or anything of that sort. Haven't you? We watched the movie together.
Yes. But have you read a book that was actually a real story? The story of not necessarily an autobiography, but yes, an autobiography too. But
Biographies? For school assignments, yes. For entertainment, no.
okay, why don't you like biographies?
Most of the time they're written in a fashion that emphasizes certain parts in someone's life and doesn't focus on some more important parts that help you really see who they are as a person. They are mostly for educational purposes, which creates the problem with being unable to truly relate to them because they aren't set up as a person, they're set up as a milestone in history.
Okay, what was the last biography or real story that you read outside of school?
The last real story that I read following like actual historical facts. That was probably a biography on that Isaac book that I read, that I shared with you.
Oh, that was a very sad book. About the child slavery.
Yes.
That was a very hard book to read. Okay, that's the last one that you read.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you something. Do you think the reason why you don't like biographies in history, and I know that you did say something about it, is because it reminds you too much of school and assignments?
I don't dislike school. It's not because of that. It is because I just don't find them interesting in general. It doesn't pique my interest whatsoever, so
Okay.
I generally avoid them.
Okay. How do you manage when you have to read a book that you're not interested in at all, but you have to read it for school?
Oh, I still read it, just
How do
very
you manage?
slowly.
Okay. Okay. What do you think are the best elements in a book? What keeps you engaged?
The antagonist. The antagonist in a book is a very important part, just like with any story. If it's a fantasy book, you have to build them up as an equal and opposite to the protagonist. They have to, generally, what a very good antagonist has is the same general views, but a negative way of exposing them to the world and just doing what they want to achieve the wrong way. So the reader can still relate to the antagonist, but they remain as someone who is teetering on the edge of being good and bad. Never switching to the good side, of course, because then you end up with a story that doesn't have a main antagonist and heroes who no longer have a motive, but always remaining either way. Best antagonists are cut from the same mold as heroes.
No, that's interesting. Okay. And how do you know all this? Have you taken a class on analyzing literature, or have you watched videos about how to analyze
Mostly
a book?
the internet. I spend a lot of time on the internet and just taking what I've learned there and analyzing and breaking down main points of culture. Infinity War is a great example of a villain cut straight from the mold of a hero. In that movie, they actually chose to make the main villain the protagonist of the entire story.
I do remember that movie, and you're correct.
It follows the arc of a hero in perfect unison, do up to the point where Thanos succeeds in his goal and goes back to his original home and sits in peace and quiet on a grateful universe.
Yes, I remember that. He was just trying to make things better, but
He had the right goal, but the wrong way of doing it.
yes, I remember that.
He wanted to make everyone's life better and ensure that all life remained in paradise by killing half the universe.
Okay. What do you think about the literature that's given to you at school? Do you feel like it's at your level? Do you think it could be better? What do you think?
Most of the time it ends up a little bit below, but that's all right. I end up either burning through the book or kind of just slowly chipping away at it because it's not interesting or too interesting, causing me to not want to only read that one chapter they assign. So I end up having to fake having not read the rest of the book. And sometimes I'll let a little something slip and everything will fall apart,
Oh,
which
no.
kind of sucks. But overall, literature in school is not the same as choosing your own books. You know your own interests. The school, they just try and come up with an average for everyone, which does not end up the best for each individual person, but on a larger scale, it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Can you tell me what's the last book you read?
Renegades.
Can you tell me a little bit about it? Just a little bit? A short conclusion?
Basically, it takes into the fact that superhero abilities would cause everything to fall apart in our society. So that ends up happening before the book happens, on Age of Anarchy, which is brought to a close by a small group of heroes. And it's basically the book takes place after all of that has happened, and it takes into account all the side effects of the Age of Anarchy and the revolution. and how absolute power corrupts absolutely. Even the figures that were incorruptible in past, the heroes themselves that saved the world from the age of anarchy, still fall to having way too much power.
Okay. Okay, and let me ask you one last question because I wanna, in order to determine what I should have you read. The books that I've seen you reading lately, and the book that you mentioned just now, Renegades. It seems like you're more into the newer books from 2000 and on. Have you ever tried reading classics?
Yes,
Or
Lord of
books?
the Rings.
Lord of
And
the
I've
Rings.
also read The Hobbit.
When were those books written?
I forget the date. They were written by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Prior to 1995?
Yes. Quite a bit prior to 1995.
I actually did watch the Lord of the Rings movies and I enjoyed them, so that was good. Okay, why do you think that you prefer the younger books though?
They're easier to relate to because they're set in a time that's now. I haven't lived before 2005, so I can't exactly relate to what was happening then. I can't see the situations that were going on global scales and experience the emotions that raked the general public. I can only experience now, so I read books from now.
Okay, do you think that maybe do you think it's important for us to learn our history?
History is what affects the future. History will be doomed to repeat itself as long as we do not know how our actions will affect the future, because the present will be history. People don't understand that their actions will affect the future for many generations. Look back to the Crusades. If you follow the line of effects that they cause, you could create a line that connected all the way to World War One.
That's very interesting.
Because the Crusades ended up causing large amounts of damage to the Middle East, embittering their relationships. They also weakened some of the forces within Europe in general, because a lot of European lives were lost, seeing how they lost every single crusade. They broke up the relationship between Europeans and the Catholic Church and made the divide bigger, causing Europeans to start breaking off into their own things and not being so heavily religious as they had in the past, which eventually ends up leading over to the American Revolution, which the French bankrupted themselves in order to try and send a big FU to the British. And because of that, the French Revolution took place. Napoleon was able to take power. He broke up Austria-Hungary and led to modern-day Germany, which led to the destabilization and famines that they were experiencing before World War I. And then, as soon as that Duke got shot, they took the opportunity and tried to expand and gain more land to try and help support themselves.
Okay, wow.
Then World War II made the problems that Germany was facing before even worse, because they were bankrupt now, and then they tried to do it again. Did not go well.
Well, I did study World War II. I never studied World War I in school. I don't know why, but it makes sense. It's so interesting. To do a closing statement for this interview, can you tell me, and you know that I'm going to pick a book for you to read, right?
Yes, and I know I'm probably going to despise it with all of my heart, because you're going to pick a biography. Knowing what you've asked so far, you are going to pick either an autobiography or a biography.
I think that we can sometimes benefit from learning about the great men of the past. I have a few in mind. I really like Malcolm X.
History is made by large masses of people, not individual people. If the Wright brothers hadn't made the airplane, someone else would have.
Well,
if the light bulb hadn't been perfected, it would have been perfected by someone else.
Yes, I understand. Just that the purpose of this project is not to put you outside of your comfort zone all the way. The purpose of this project is for me to learn about you, learn about your interest, and then relate to you. And think of a book that I feel you would benefit from. Yes, it would be nice to put you a little bit outside of the box. But
So you're just gonna yoke me completely
No.
outside of it with biography?
no, I won't. Because the purpose of the project is, part of it is that I listened to you, that I understood you, and then I picked a book based on your interests and your likes, and also based on what you should be learning, what I feel like you would benefit for. And in an ideal world, in an ideal project, I would pick a book that you would actually like, while still bringing elements that you haven't had yet, you haven't experienced yet. But don't worry, I won't pick anything too terrible. You're gonna give it a shot no matter what it is, right?
Yeah, I have to. It's not a question in this situation.
No, you don't have to. I mean, you have to give it a chance to read at least a little bit into it. If you absolutely hate the book, you don't have to read it. But I want you to at least give it a chance. I mean, don't read 2 pages and put it down. Read at least, a little bit, a couple of chapters. And then if you absolutely hate it, reading should be enjoyed, especially right now. And there's plenty of books that can give you the same type of learning and the same type of experience. So I hope this goes well. Thank you so much for being with us today. Say hello to the professor in the class.
Hello.